Boxing fans are shocked to learn that the long-awaited fight between Gervonta "Tank" Davis and Conor Benn will happen in January 2025. The fight is set to be one of the biggest of the year, after months of rumors and talks that became more real earlier this year. Hearn, who coaches Conor Benn, has been working hard to get his fighter a big fight, but Gervonta Davis seemed at other ideas. At first glance, it looks like both sides have now reached a deal. Tank just beat Frank Martin in one of the biggest fights of the year and is now riding high. Tank's explosive style and incredible knockout power have made him a star in the sport, and just his name promises that a lot of people will buy tickets and watch the fight. Even though Davis has had a lot of success, he's never truly happy with his earnings, especially when he thinks about how much money a fight this big could bring in.
Want a piece of them because they feel like it's probably an easy kind of fight where I'm not worried about getting knocked out. I can take care of this guy. And that's their prerogative. As far as the Tank fight in particular, I mean, you say an 8-figure payday, I say whoop-de-doo. Tank Davis can make 8 figures against anybody. He can probably make 8 figures against you or me.
When they talk about the discussions, he's never going to be happy. But the fight can bring in a lot of pay-per-view and ticket sales because it's such a big deal. Davis knows what's going on and isn't going to take anything less than full pay for his part. Davis, who has fought in front of sold-out arenas and broken PPV records, is expecting a similar purse to what he got in his fight against Ryan Garcia. His name brings in numbers, and he knows it. He also knows that he has a potential rematch with Garcia on the horizon, which means he isn't about to accept anything less than what he's worth.
I think that fight gets made. Listen, I'll agree to fight anyone. Do you know what I mean? Ain't my concern. You know, if 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 mil.
Conor Benn, son of British boxing legend Nigel Benn, is equally eager to make a name for himself with an impressive record. Benn has been moving up in the welterweight class. He is known for his tough style and constant pressure. Benn has caught the attention of boxing fans worldwide, and now with a fight against Gervonta Davis on the horizon, he has the chance to become a household name.
Straight back in to where I belong. I ain't gone nowhere. I've still been here, so throw me straight in. As I mentioned, anyone top 5, convinced. So it's just about making these fights happen.
For Benn, this fight is more than just a payday, it's a message. He's been chasing big fights for the last few years, and now with a chance to face one of the biggest names in the sport, he's ready to show the world that he belongs among the best. Benn has had other options for fights, with possible matchups against Chris Eubank Jr., Mario Barrios, and even Manny Pacquiao being discussed. But none of those names carried the same weight as Gervonta Davis.
My hit list has got to be Eubank, Barrios, Haney, near the world.
Hearn has been vocal about Benn's desire to fight someone of Davis's level. Conor is very keen to lock in his next fight as soon as possible. Hearn said, "We're talking and we'll see where it gets to. But I promise you this Conor Benn will be in a big fight next." Hearn has been a key player in making this fight happen. As one of the most famous promoters in the sport, Hearn knows how to negotiate and put together the biggest fights. He's been pushing hard to get Benn the fight he deserves, and after months of talks, it seems like everything has fallen into place. Hearn has been particularly focused on getting Benn back into the ring after the long break. Benn hasn't had any action since his last bout against Chris Van Heerden, and Hearn has been eager to get him a high-profile opponent for his return. While a possible fight with Chris Eubank Jr. was on the table, it seemed too difficult to arrange. Eubank has been eyeing other fights, and the negotiations for that bout were taking longer than Hearn was ready to wait. Chris Eubank Jr. was always an option, but it just wasn't coming together the way we wanted. Hearn stated there's been too much back and forth, and Conor wants to fight now. He's not interested in waiting around for months while we try to make something happen with Eubank Jr. out of the picture. Hearn turned his attention to Gervonta Davis, a fighter whose star power could catapult Benn into the limelight. Hearn knew it wouldn't be easy to make the fight happen, but he was confident that it would be worth the work. One of the key problems in the negotiations was, of course, money. Gervonta Davis is coming off a mega fight with Ryan Garcia, where both fighters made massive purses. Davis is expecting similar money for this fight, even though it's not quite as big as the Garcia bout. Eddie Hearn knows that if he wants to secure Davis for this fight, he'll need to offer a lot of money. If Hearn wants the Tank fight, he will need to offer him a lot of money, which could be more than the fight will make, one analyst said.
Whoa.
Tank will want the same kind of payday he got for the Garcia fight, even though this fight isn't as big in terms of popular appeal despite the financial challenges. Hearn is confident that the fight will bring big numbers. This fight is going to create huge pay-per-view sales. Hearn said Gervonta knows that, and we're prepared to make sure he gets what he's worth in a recent interview. Davis made it clear that he doesn't see Benn as a threat. He's a good fighter, but he's not on my level. Davis said, I fought the best, and I've beaten the best. This fight is just another stepping stone for me. However, Benn's dad did not have a straight trip to the idea of this fight. Nigel Benn's obvious disinterest in his son Conor Benn fighting Gervonta Davis raised eyebrows across the boxing world as a legend in his own right. Nigel Benn's opinions carry weight, and his comments about Conor's next opponents show a cautious yet strategic approach when asked about his son's future. Gervonta Davis was obviously absent from the list of possible matchups mentioned by Nigel Benn, which included names like Mario Barrios, Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith. This omission led to speculation about whether Nigel was knowingly steering Conor away from the danger that Tank Davis represents. For a fighter like Conor, who has already proven his mettle in the ring, the next fight could define his career, and it's not strange that his father would be heavily involved in these decisions. Yet when Gervonta Davis was announced as Conor's confirmed opponent for January, fans couldn't help but wonder why Nigel Benn seemed skeptical at first. One of the most significant factors behind Nigel Benn's hesitation could have been the weight difference between the two fighters. Conor Benn has made a name for himself as a welterweight, a division where he's shown power, speed, and skill. Gervonta Davis, on the other hand, has spent most of his career dominating in the lightweight division, often fighting smaller opponents, while Davis has the power to knock out opponent even at higher weights. Moving up to fight a naturally bigger fighter like Conor Benn presents an entirely different challenge. For Nigel, the worrying may have been about whether Tank could handle that size disparity. Sure, Davis has immense knockout power, but fighting a larger, stronger opponent like Conor offers new variables. Nigel, having fought and won in various divisions himself, likely understands the complexities that come with such matchups. His weariness might be based in the fact that this fight carries immense risk for both men, but especially for his son. Beyond the weight difference, the clash of fighting styles is another worrying that may have crossed Nigel Benn's mind. Gervonta Davis is known for his powerful knockout power and his ability to quickly close the door distance. His counter-punching skills are some of the best in the sport, and he often waits for his opponents to make a mistake before capitalizing on it with deadly results. Meanwhile, Conor Benn is an aggressive fighter who likes to press the action and force his will on his opponents. His forward-moving style has led to plenty of stoppage wins, but against a dangerous counter-puncher like Davis, it could be a double-edged sword.
Shit.
Nigel Benn likely recognized that Conor's aggressive style could play directly into Davis' strengths, which may be why he was hesitant to endorse the fight. And while Conor is undoubtedly a talented and powerful boxer, fighting Gervonta Davis requires a different level of caution, strategy, and defense. Nigel, who has seen countless fights in his career, knows how dangerous it can be to engage carelessly with a fighter like Davis. Another reason Nigel Benn may have expressed skepticism is his desire to protect his son's job trajectory. Conor Benn is on the rise with an undefeated record and plenty of energy. Taking a loss to Gervonta Davis, especially if it's a knockout, could derail that progress and set back years of hard work. Nigel Benn knows all too well the importance of building a career carefully and strategically. He likely wants Conor to face opponents that will both challenge him and elevate his standing without putting him in undue danger. In the interview, Nigel suggested names like Mario Barrios and Chris Eubank Jr., both of whom are formidable opponents, but perhaps less risky than Gervonta Davis at this stage of Conor's career, while Eubank Jr. would certainly be a high-profile fight. It's a more familiar area for Conor staying. Within the realm of the British boxing scene, Gervonta Davis, on the other hand, represents a global superstar with a massive following, making it a much more dangerous and possibly career-defining fight. And then we could say that Gervonta Davis's status as a knockout artist may have been a factor in Nigel's reluctance. Davis has an image of invincibility surrounding him. Having knocked out most of his opponents with relative ease, his ability to end a fight with a single punch makes him one of the most feared boxers in the sport today. As a father, Nigel Benn's priority is to protect his son, and the prospect of Conor stepping into the ring with someone as dangerous as Tank could easily make any parent uneasy. In his interview, Nigel emphasized his opinion that Conor was ready for fights with Eubank or Smith, but made no mention of Davis, suggesting that he might not feel Conor is quite ready for a challenge of that magnitude. However, as the fight between Gervonta and Conor has now been confirmed, it's clear that Conor Benn is confident in his abilities and ready to take on the toughest challenges in the sport despite of his father's reservations. Despite Nigel Benn's initial skepticism, Conor Benn will now face Gervonta Davis in January in what promises to be one of the most anticipated fights of the year. While Nigel may have had his worries, it's clear that Conor is determined to make his mark and show that he can compete with the very best. Gervonta Davis has taken Conor Benn's offer to fight him next, but whether this fight will actually happen is the big question on everyone's mind for fans. It's almost hard to think that Davis, who has been highly selective in picking his opponents, would choose to fight the unbeaten but relatively unknown British fighter Conor Benn. The announcement of this possible showdown has stirred a mix of excitement and doubt within the boxing community, especially when considering how this fight will be received, particularly by American audiences. The first hurdle that this fight must beat is its marketability. While Gervonta Davis, with his perfect 29-0 record and explosive knockout power, is a massive draw in the US, Conor Benn is a different story. Benn, despite his unbeaten record of 23, is still largely untested and new to American boxing fans. This raises a major concern. Can the Davis vs. Benn fight sell enough to justify the high purses both fighters are expecting for a pay-per-view fight to be successful? It needs to draw a large audience, especially in the United States, which remains one of the biggest markets for boxing. Conor Benn has become a PPV star, particularly after his massive fight with Ryan Garcia earlier, but Conor Benn does not have the same amount of exposure in the States. In fact, Benn's latest fights have mostly been in the UK or against lesser-known opponents. His lack of a solid fan base in the US could make it difficult to sell this fight on American land. Moreover, the perception of Conor Benn as an untested fighter could work against the promotion. His unbeaten record, while impressive, doesn't carry the same weight as some of Davis's past opponents. The American audience may not be convinced that Benn is a fair challenge for Davis, which could impact their desire to buy into the fight. While the fight may struggle to sell in the US, there's always the chance that the Saudis could step in to make it happen. Saudi Arabia has become a big player in the world of boxing, offering huge sums of money to host high-profile fights. If they see value in a Davis vs. Benn showdown, the Saudis could easily bankroll the fight, ensuring both fighters get the payouts they want. In recent years, Saudi Arabia has hosted several blockbuster boxing events, and their involvement would certainly alleviate some of the financial concerns regarding the fight. However, even if the Saudis put up the money, there's still the question of whether this fight will capture the interest of boxing fans globally. While Davis is a massive name, the lack of familiarity with Benn could limit the excitement around the matchup, especially compared to other potential fights involving Davis, such as with Devin Haney or Shocker Stevenson. Despite the doubt surrounding the fight, Gervonta Davis seems more than ready to step into the ring with Benn when asked about the fight on social media. Davis responded confidently, saying, "Sure, why not? Where would you like your backside whooping at, bro?" His dismissive tone toward Benn suggests that Davis doesn't view the British boxer as a serious threat. Davis's attitude reflects the general opinion in the boxing world that Benn, while undefeated, is not on the same level as the Baltimore star. Still, the fact that Davis has accepted the challenge shows that he's ready to take on all comers after his win over Ryan Garcia. Davis has hit a point in his career where he's looking for big-name opponents to solidify his legacy. Benn, while not as high-profile as some other fighters, still offers a new challenge for Davis, especially given the size difference between the two. Davis's confidence in his ability to handle Benn is evident in his public statements, where he's basically brushing off Benn's challenge as little more than a minor inconvenience. Not one to shy away from a confrontation, Conor Benn spent no time firing back at Davis on social media. Benn responded by calling Davis a woman-beating and demanded that his promoter Eddie Hearn make the fight happen. Benn's answer was brash and aggressive, fitting his persona as a fiery and confident fighter. However, some might argue that his response reflects a certain level of insecurity, especially after his less than impressive performance in his most recent fight against Peter Dobson. In that fight, Benn struggled to get past Dobson, finally winning by unanimous decision, but not without showing some vulnerabilities. Dobson, while not a world-class opponent, was able to land several shots on Benn, making him look uncomfortable at times. For many boxing experts, this fight revealed that Benn is still operating at a domestic level, far from being a world-class fighter. This raises the question, is Benn truly ready to face someone like Gervonta Davis? The biggest question that remains is whether this fight will actually happen. On paper, it seems like a risky proposition for both fighters. For Davis, fighting Benn offers little in terms of legacy or financial gain, especially if the fight fails to generate significant interest in the US. For Benn, stepping into the ring with someone as dangerous as Gervonta Davis could prove disastrous for his undefeated record, especially given his recent performance against Dobson. Boxing is a sport where anything can happen, and if the right money is involved, there's a strong chance that this fight will take place. Eddie Hearn, Benn's promoter, has a record for making big fights happen, and if he can negotiate a deal with Davis's team, this could be a reality. The Saudis, with their deep pockets, could also play a major role in making this fight a fact, as they've done with other major boxing events in recent years. Well, if it happens, how do you think it will go? Go share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the station for more.